Patrick Gavin, Politico. It is now time to turn the table with Al Hunt, host of Political Capital with Al Hunt on Bloomberg TV. Al, you penned a story this week that asked the question, will the budget deal curb Paul Ryan's presidential ambitions? What did you mean, and what is the answer to that question?
Well, I think this budget deal is on balance a good deal. It is somewhat reminiscent of what Churchill said about democracy. It's the worst system of all except for all the others. This is small bore and all that, except what it replaces is the mindless sequester, and it also avoids another government shutdown and shows that at least there's a semblance of bipartisan spirit at work here. So I think Paul Ryan deserves enormous credit. I don't think those activists out in Iowa and South Carolina would agree with that. I think it'll certainly pass the House. A lot of Republicans will vote for it. It's better for them than the alternative, but I'm not sure the activists believe that, and I think Paul Ryan had an uphill climb anyway. He's much more likely to be Ways and Means Chairman than the next GOP presidential nominee.
Well, there's obviously two ways of coming out of this, I think, for Paul Ryan. One is you could view him as a deal maker, somebody who can reach across the aisle, somebody who could compromise. Of course, a lot of people on the far right would criticize him for having done those very things. Which do you think for him is going to be more important in the long run, sort of doing what he did this week or sort of maintaining his street cred with the conservative right?
I think it's the former. I think Paul Ryan is principally a legislator. He's a policy wonk. I doubt he would have run for president under any circumstance. Paul Ryan with young kids spending whatever it is, Patrick, 77 days in Iowa and South Carolina in 2015. They were more attractive options. I think he'd rather work on tax reform and other matters. So I think Paul Ryan sees himself as the next chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, assuming Republicans retain control, which they probably will, and maybe someday Speaker.
You know, switching over to the Democratic side, President Obama is going to end this year on a not a very high note with his approval ratings. And what's sort of interesting is that really for the, I guess, first 5 years of his presidency, it almost seemed as if no matter what happened negatively, he always sort of had this core approval rating that hovered right around 50 that really never wavered. And yet now it is sort of starting to chip away. What happened? Why has that approval rating sort of lost that strong base that it's always had?
There's a two-word answer: healthcare.
Yeah.
The screw up there is what really changed whatever problems he had on some other issues and changed that 48% approval down to 42 or 43. The Wall Street Journal NBC poll captured that this week. I love that poll, Patrick, because 25 years ago Tim Russert and I started it. But I think it really did capture the problems he has. I think it's 90% the affordable health care. And it's not going to be as easy to turn around as some White House people pretend.
Well, I'm curious too, I mean, and maybe it's a mixture of both, but how much of it is sort of the botched rollout of healthcare.gov? And then also how much of it is the fact that the president has kind of had to backtrack some of the things he said previously, meaning if you like your plan, you can keep it. I mean, that does get to the whole idea of honesty that he's now had to, sort of eat his words a little bit on.
It does. It's of a piece, I think, because what the Republicans have been saying for a long time is that this thing is a flawed plan. They haven't told you what it really is going to do. Now, that's an arguable point, Patrick. It may well be that by this time next year it'll be working pretty darn well and they'll be rescued from it. But so far, when you take the two elements that you just noted, that really gives a lot of cause of concern to voters out there. They still don't want it repealed, but most voters don't think it's going to work right now. And that's largely a creation of Obama's own miscues.
All right, before we go, tell us about your program this weekend.
Well, about a month ago, we had Ted Cruz and Scott Walker. I veered strongly right. I thought it was a great show. This week, we have two important Democratic leaders, Chris Van Hollen, the top party economic guy in the House, and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, who doesn't do many television interviews. So if we don't make news, Patrick, it's because of me.
That's right. And then we won't have you back on next week.
Exactly.
All right,
and Mike Allen will forever disapprove.
Yes, exactly. Al Hunt, host of Political Capital with Al Hunt. You can see it on Bloomberg TV. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, Patrick.